Welcome to What Ha Happened, the podcast where we talk about our latest chismes,
or gossip for you non-Spanish speaking folks,
crazy travel stories, hood memoirs, and food and wine.
This is an adult podcast,
so some of our topics may make our listeners a wee bit uncomfortable.
Listener discretion is advised.
And if you're of legal drinking age,
grab a glass of wine
or a beverage of your choice and enjoy the show.
So I woke up, I made breakfast, and then I was like really tired though. So I was like, okay, well, I've only had like 5 hours of sleep. Like I need to go back to bed, you know? And so then I'm laying down, I'm watching some show on Hulu. And then I started to fall asleep. So I was like, okay, great. So I, turn it off. I go back to sleep. And then I wake up at 10 o'clock. And I had an appointment at 10 o'clock with the leasing office here at my new apartment. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I literally just ran downstairs. But I'm like, I still have the marks on my cheek from my pillow and shit. And then I still woke up with a sore throat. So every day I've been waking up with a sore throat. And so I'm just like, fuck, And so I've been taking, the vitamin C packets, and I made myself some smoothies.
Emergency and what have you.
It's just vitamin C packet. I don't know what emergency is, but yeah. So anyway, and then so I've been so I got a pass for the Tap Metro card, and they gave me, because I'm a new person or whatever, they gave me 3 months free on the Metro.
Nice.
So yeah, so I have 3 months. So I'm like, you know what? I can just literally take the train to work. So that's what I've been doing every day. And so my car is just parked. I'm like, I'm so looking forward to not to have to spend
That's
money
good,
on
though,
gas.
right? Because then you don't have to worry about spending gas money or anything for the time being, and you're actually being green. You're being fucking green. You're green, which is good. Green is good. And when I say green, plant, I'm like, you're
my plant here.
Exactly. You're being green like you're
for you guys
plant.
that are not watching, I'm holding up my plant. Her name is Ruby, even though she's green. But yeah.
Oh my stars.
This is me and Kari's love child. So when I took custody of her, it was only this one, the big,
it was only one leaf.
It was just one leaf. And so every day I talk to her and give her water, and I'm like, oh, and I clean her each and every single petal, and I tell her how pretty she is, and etc. Anyway, I've digressed. So yeah, but so I had to leave, and then I didn't feel like cooking. So I bought stuff to make a cocido, because I was like, oh, I want to get a soup, because I've been feeling kind of under the weather.
Cocido, so I had folks, for those of you that don't know, sorry, let me pause for a second, is a hearty stew, a soup. Is it a soup? Can you describe it?
It's a soup. It's not a stew. It's a soup.
It's not a stew.
But it's a beef soup.
And it's got
with
corn
vegetables,
on the cob,
vegetables.
Vegetables.
It's got vegetables like carrots and squash and potatoes. Do I have potatoes? Maybe. I don't know.
Potato. It's so delicious. That's one of my favorite things.
Dude, me too. And I love making cocido. So anyway, I have all the ingredients. I went and bought that, but I woke up and I was so lethargic, and I was like, so I just stopped on my way to the train station. Because on my way is the Trader Joe's. They have this section where it's the deli section. You can buy sandwiches, already made salads. And I was kind of feeling like a salad. I was like, I'm feeling like a salad. And then I saw a little chicken soup chingadera. So I also picked that up. And so I took both to work, but I decided on the salad.
What a combination. Wow.
Well, I didn't even eat the soup at work because I didn't have appetite today. Well, I haven't, my appetite's been crazy. And so anyway, I just ate a salad. And then I got home and I ate a little bit of the soup.
I'm a little lethargic because I went to Mexico and
Because of the wonderful
I
things
came
he does.
back
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
uh, and
Because,
I got
because,
bitten by
because.
mosquitoes. Like literally, it took like 3 days to react. I swear, I don't know if they were mosquitoes or something else, but all of a sudden, like 3 days later, like I started to scratch and itch, and all of a sudden, all these marks started popping up all over my legs and on my back and on my arms, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm scratching. I'm like, oh
Wait, are
my
you having
gosh.
a allergic reaction or is this
No, they're
mosquito
actual
bites?
bites. There are bites
Oh,
everywhere, and I didn't notice them. Like maybe I wasn't thinking, and then maybe it was adrenaline. I don't know what it was, but I didn't feel anything till like I got on the plane back home. And then I started to scratch. Things are like, and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna scratch it. Then I got home and I'm like, oh my gosh. All of a sudden, all these like the next day when I like a day after I got back, I'm like, holy shit, I'm bitten up pretty good. Like everywhere. It's
just
like,
rub yourself with calamine lotion.
yeah, no, I mean, I can go buy some, but it's just like
And
I'm
they have
thinking that
anti-itch
maybe,
cream chingaderas like
maybe
at the 99-cent
I
store.
got bit so much that like my body's having a different, there's also the biting, but there's so many bites. I mean, like hundreds of bites. It's like bananas that, that I might be getting sick from that too. Who knows? Well,
Oh yeah,
that's my
you came
story.
back
I'm
with like
sticking
a
with it.
stomach
And
situation,
the
right?
stomach flu. Yeah. I had like I guess I came back with a bug too while I was in Mexico. So, but, I'm back. So, hi everybody. This is Rich Mo.
Oh yeah, and this is Lala. And this is
This
our
is
podcast. What
what
happened? So
happened.
we're just updating each other on what happened to us this weekend. Rich Mo had to go
Yeah.
to Mexico on an emergency, which is why we had to take a week off
Yeah,
from
just
recording. He had a family emergency.
if you guys didn't already know, I kind of touched upon this. I won't talk about it too much, but my ex-wife had cancer and she fought and then she lost to cancer last week. And so I went down uh, you know, to lay her to rest in her hometown. And so that was me going back to Mexico, flying into Puerto Vallarta, and then driving 5 hours um, north of Puerto Vallarta to her hometown and laying her to rest with my oldest daughter. That was that. So here I am. I'm all bitten up, but I'm back. And this is our first app. Our first app back. So what are we doing? I mean,
Oh yeah.
while I was
So
in Mexico,
today.
go ahead.
So I was sick, so I had like a sore throat and stuff, and that's also why we couldn't record as well because I couldn't speak, like it's actually painful. And so while I was sick and at home just binging on movies, I'm a big, big fan of Stephen King books, right? So I've like read a ton of his books. And one of my favorite books is The Shining, and that is actually one of my favorite movies. And so like I periodically watch it over and over and over again. And so I watched this movie called, what was it called? The first movie that I told you to watch.
Room
Oh
237
yeah, Room 237.
as a documentary. So I had this
Well,
assignment too. Lala's like,
okay,
hey,
so I'm watching this movie called Room 237, and it basically it breaks down. I don't think it's a documentary. It just breaks down from like different people who have worked with um Kubrick, which is the director, right, of the
mhm.
movie.
I would say it's a
And
documentary. I would call it a documentary. I would label
really,
that as a doc. Yes,
well,
for
because
sure. It's
it
a
says
documentary
in the
because it's a
beginning of the thing of the movie, it says that the opinions do not represent, etc., anything with the movie or with Kubrick or with it. It's just people's opinions of,
sure. I mean, but
okay.
I believe that's documentary format. It doesn't. I mean, it can be opinion, much like a documentary on conspiracy or something.
Oh,
Because some
okay.
people may or may not believe it. They may take it as fact, but it's a documentary. I would
Okay.
definitely. Room 237 is a documentary, I would say.
So they start talking about all these like different details about the movie and how Kubrick, who is the director of the movie, did little tiny like nuances to put on so that he got certain points across and like things in the background, and so I was like, is that right? Or is this, because a lot of people like read into too much into other stuff and that's how they become like crazy, ¿cómo se llaman? The people.
It's like taking the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album and playing it with
Yeah.
what is that, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, when the MGM logo tiger comes on, you
Oh, I
press
heard
play.
about
Have
that,
you
but I
ever
never
done that?
watched it like that.
Oh,
No,
these
but
stories, yeah.
just reading too much into things. And so I was just like, like, is this really real? And since, Rich works doing post-production editing, I was like, okay, I need to have his opinion because he's the one that works with the people with the vision. And so I asked him, what are your thoughts about this movie? Like, is this on point or whatever? Because I wanted to get it from somebody who works in the industry and actually works with the directors and to do the final product because he's post-production. Hello. So I wanted to get his professional opinion. And so what did you think of the movie?
Well, I've always been scared of this movie. First off, I watched The Shining.
And people, if you guys didn't already know and listen to our clown episode, he doesn't like watching scary movies. And I am an avid like horror story reader and movie watcher, etc.
So I'm watching this thing mortified. I've seen it. I own The Shining. That's what we were watching. The 237 the room 237 is based on The Shining and things that come from The Shining. And
it basically breaks down everything about The Shining is basically what it does.
Yes, it does. But I was like, Lala calls me up and says, "Okay, watch this movie. You watch The Shining again and pay attention to it." And so I'm like, okay, I'm here by myself.
He sends me the emoji with the little eyeglass. Like, I'll be vigilant.
Yeah, I'm gonna be looking at this and paying attention because I don't know what her thoughts were. It's like, what do you want? Like, what are we gonna dissect?
How I said it was like, this is a 3-part assignment. Okay, this is part 1. Part 1.
Let everybody know.
Watch The Shining.
I got halfway through the movie because it started at night because I got home, after my day, and I couldn't watch it because I was too fucking scared. And then I turned it off. I'm like, I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna watch it in the daytime because I just can't do this all night. I've seen it like dozens of times. This is a movie I've seen over and over again. But it doesn't. There's certain aspects of it that just scare me. So I guess that's one of the first things because she asked me like, what did you think? Well, what did you notice? And then I started going into detail on all the other little things that I thought we might talk about.
What are the details that you saw when you first saw it again? Like, I want you to explain that, what we discussed. Because, okay, and I wanted to save it for the recording, but I kind of wanted to see where his mind was going when he saw it, because I wanted to see his train of thought after rewatching it. So can you please explain to me? Or everybody,
so I originally when because we had just talked about like the Sound of Freedom and kind of things and like what movies mean and like the style and people were canceling that movie, that was just another movie. But since we're watching this movie, I'm like, well, the movie for the time is kind of like it would be canceled today. Like if you gave somebody that script, they would probably never make it today because of just the way that women are treated, the way that it's just like, whoa, hold on here.
It's very patriarchal,
Yeah. And so that's the first thing I noticed.
It's like basic patriarch, like, the man makes the decisions the woman has to follow, etc. So yes, go ahead.
And for those of you who haven't seen The Shining, then I would strongly recommend watching it. It's a masterpiece, I think, a cinema. And then after watching Room 237, it just opened my eyes to other things that I never really thought of. But I was like, okay, this is really cool. But for me, watching it again for the first time, one, I was mortified because there's like mental health, there's child abuse,
Yes.
there is one the Shelley Duvall, the wife, she's like protecting the husband. There's all these things that are just like wrong in society
In
as a whole, which
society, yeah.
you would think that we can't, like, how are we letting this like it's wrong like it's already starting off on the wrong foot, which makes it like not like even keeled, so to speak. There's already
it's
all these things
basically
wrong.
everything that is wrong with society is I feel is totally inside, and I read the book, and like the movie kind of deviates from the book, and in Room 2, no, not Room 237. No, not in that. Oh, maybe that's where they do mention it, right? That
They
he
do
deviates
mention they do
from the script because to Stephen King's not liking it, but he did it anyway because this is his remake,
It's his vision,
his take on the story when he read the book. And so he also in Room 237 they mention also a lot about how the Native Americans were taken advantage of, and how they just that whole problem of, basically genocide of all the indigenous people.
Yeah, and there's a quote at the beginning of the movie for those of you who haven't seen it. I don't know, hopefully I don't ruin it if you haven't seen it, but there's a whole quote of like when they're showing the hotel to Jack Nicholson's character, and they're walking around, and he says, yeah, the hotel was built on the site, and they say it was built on a Indian burial site, and the Indians came and attacked, and they had to like take people out because we were still going to build, like, the dominating thing, like, we're going to do this anyway, and the hell with everybody. Even though we were attacked,
basically
we had to fight
like them. White privilege, like, hey, we came and took your land, and like, this is mine, and so I'm gonna own it because I said I own it, and because I'm better than you.
Well, there's all that subtext, and it's just like little nuances, little subtext that just goes on.
But then there was also, which I never caught on to until I saw Room 237, was that about the Nazis and stuff, the numbers, the actual number 237,
number 42
or 42. Anyway,
number 40. Then it all adds up to 42. The number 42, which is the start of when the Holocaust started, when they decided to,
Yeah, and so that I was totally unaware of, like, until they broke it down. But then I was just like, okay, so then I watched The Shining, I watched Room 237, and then I was just like, are they just like making mountains out of molehills? I think that's how you say it. Mountains out of molehills. I think so. Anyway,
making mountains out of molehills. Yes, that
yeah, como mucho tanto pedo para cagar aguado kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the Mexican version. Yes.
But
No, I don't think so. I think that after watching,
but this is why I wanted to have a second opinion, because I was just like, and I didn't want to tell you anything about where my mind was going, because I didn't want to influence you by me saying something. I wanted you to have your original opinion. So that's why I was like, okay, this is a 3-part assignment. Assignment number 1, watch The Shining again.
I got
just close attention. What do you feel? What do you, etc. Then second assignment, watch Room 237. What do you think about this? How do you, do you work with people who do this kind of deep attention to detail, to the background, or is it sometimes just like accidental and then people just read into it? So this is the kind of questions And then so that's why I asked Rich, and I'm like, what were your answers to that?
Yeah, no. So yeah, sometimes, well, in documentary, they always say, I forget who said it, but they always say sometimes you have to lie to tell the truth. And in movies, I think, and not in all cases, sometimes there is subtext, sometimes there is subtext and things going on underneath that they do it with, either acting subtlety, certain things, um, and it's meant to be subliminal. None of it is kind of overt. And after watching, Room 237, it it made sense to me. It really made sense that Stanley Kubrick, who's this genius, right? It would actually compile these things together because he was known to just like research and do stuff. So everything was methodical. Nothing was there without purpose. So it made me kind of want to like, I gotta watch The Shining again and see if there's anything else that I see that they didn't mention that I see for myself. Like, but yeah, there's all this subtext, and it's just like after hearing about it, and after hearing, it's like if you're a cryptologist, you like puzzles and things, and you like to solve like crossword puzzles and like rompecabezas,
That would be
just jigsaw
me.
puzzles. Yes, then watch 237, then you realize, yes, those things all make sense. Now they all make sense when you hear somebody like break it down, because then they make sense. But on first
Well,
watch, you're enjoying the movie.
just the
Oh my
fact that they
stars.
took the time to scene by scene, and then they even do like a little map of the hotel, and they're like, well, according to this should not have a window because it's supposed to be on the inside the office of the guy who's interviewing him. And then
Yeah.
they're like, well, according to the hotel map, like this. So they're like, so it makes you feel like it's surreal. You're in a dream, or you're in a, everything about this hotel is something is not real, or it's just not right. It doesn't make sense. And so like, I'm like, okay, I did get that, but I didn't know why. I was not like that aware. It just felt like one of my dreams, like I've spoken about my dreams, and my dreams are so fucking bizarre and crazy. And so, but that's how I know they're dreams, because they're really bizarre, and it does, like, certain things don't make sense. Like sometimes I cannot read in my dreams. Like for some reason I can't read, but other times I can, and like, so
My stars.
they did a really good job about that, but I didn't realize when they broke it down, like, well, if you do a map of all the scenes, then technically where it was positioned, that office should not have a window. And I'm like, oh,
I mean, I
wow,
would
that's
call that,
really taking it like to
yeah,
another level
somebody's
of,
like really breaking it down. But as a
yeah.
filmmaker, that sometimes happens. You call that suspension of disbelief. You want somebody to believe that things are happening without really wanting to think too deep into it.
And
But
this is
these
why I
folks
wanted to
broke it
ask
down.
Richmo, because that's what he does. I'm like, oh my God,
Suspension
so
of
how do you
disbelief.
guys do this? Yeah, so how does that work?
Well, it's just like when you have a jump cut. A jump cut is like when you go from one scene to another, or you do a time cut or things. You In a movie, you kind of just accept those things. You don't really think as you're watching a story. If you're watching The Shining for the first time, you don't really think like, well, he's making a left and another left. Well, that can't possibly be. You're kind of like in the moment with, like the little boy uh going down the with his big wheel through the hallway. You're just kind of in the moment. You're in the moment with every character, so you're not really thinking first time watching it. Even me, you've seen it so many times, I'm like, okay, here it comes, here. I you know it's just like, I know he's going around the corner, I know he's around the corner. There's no jump scares in this thing. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
there's something there,
And
and
then,
that's what's scary about it. I mean,
yeah,
I don't
because
know.
this movie, actually, there is nothing violent until like the end. the end where he goes through the fucking door of the bathroom, and then you start to see all these flashes of the guy with the fucking blood, and then the blood coming out of the elevator. So like, that's another thing that they talked about as well, that it's just more suspense, but it's actually, well, what I found scary about this is that this is could be mental problems, because that's
thriller.
very real. And if
it almost reminds me of the kind of, what kind of story, like what's that one we watched that was kind of a psychological one too? Oh yes.
it starts with an S. It's not Survivor. It's
It's the little
or
girl
like
that goes,
the
oh
¿Cómo
my
se
God.
llama? Why I literally, it keeps popping up on my thing, and I'm like, I don't know if I can watch you again.
Hereditary.
Hereditary. Yeah,
Hereditary.
I was gonna say hereditary
Hereditary.
because that's how my older sister said. She was like, "Yeah, I think it's
Hereditary.
hereditary," and I was like, "Hereditary? What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, you mean hereditary?" And I'm like, "Oh, ESL, just like me."
Yeah, no, yeah, Hereditary.
Hereditary,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
no,
like kind
that's
of like a
another crazy
psychological thing.
one, which maybe
We'll
I'll
get into
watch
that one,
again.
but right now, yeah, The
Yeah,
Shining was pretty.
but it's very psychological, and the reason I love that movie is because it has so many layers. It's not just a gore slash movie. It has a substance, it has a storyline, it has real problems that are actually scarier, and it's just like, fuck, like that's what I enjoyed about that movie. But anyway, after watching Room 237, I really was like, wow, I was so blown away. But also, I don't like to jump into like bandwagons for people who go all over the top, like
Like big slasher,
you
blood
know
and guts spilling, like
no,
those.
that go over the top. I mean, that are conspiracy theorists, people, that are like, wow, like go all the way on the deep end. And I'm like, I'm pretty left, but I don't go off any deep end on either side. But I do like to do my own research and create my own opinion about it, and then
Are you talking
see
about
for
the?
myself that Room 237, because it kind of
Mm,
seemed very, to me, because I'm very like skeptical of people's opinions and stuff, because I always have to, I don't know, I've always been this way where I listen to your opinion and then I chew on it for a while and then see if I can swallow it or not. Sometimes I spit it out and I'm like,
not for
sometimes
me.
I swallow, sometimes I spit.
Oh my stars! And on that, I'm gonna have a drink. Salute.
But I
So
do like to digest this stuff. And so that's why I kind of wanted to ask him about a second opinion, because he would be able to tell me like, no, yeah, this is totally what happens,
yeah,
or like,
and it's
no, that's all
totally
fucking
it.
bullshit, fabricated,
I mean, yeah, no, I think there are movies where it's very methodical and things are thought out like that, and then they're done purposely. They're People do things purposely, with purpose, for subtext and meaning, and sometimes they don't talk about it because they just want to put it out there. It's just like, how do you, for instance, I here I'll speak about something that a lot of people won't probably notice. There was a movie called Crazy Rich Asians, right? In the opening of the
oh
movie,
yeah,
the first 10
I
minutes
saw
of the
it.
movie, there's praying. There's
I haven't
praying.
seen it in a
There
while.
people, well, people are, but it's very subtle. But that's it, and then they move on. But the whole thing is that that they were actually doing something religious, and to religious folks, that's like, oh, they're reminding everybody to do something like to pray. And it's just like, but it's not preaching to you to tell you to pray, but they were just doing it for whatever reason. And then it's just done
Reminding you
over
to
and
do
moving on.
so
Exactly. So
subliminally.
it's subliminally, just remind. And I'm not saying that that was done purposely, but to me, it's just like, oh, okay, I see. Or sometimes you catch things in movies that it's like their moral values, and then sometimes in general characters have there's always a problem, and then people always have to fix it in the story. You always have a conflict, and then
Well,
you
yeah.
have to have that conflict resolution, and that's otherwise it won't be a story. We got to resolve all
Yeah.
these things, and we're as viewers, you're on the path to that resolution, and that's what makes things interesting. For The
So
Shining,
that
however,
that particular thing you just said right now takes us then to the next movie I told them to watch, which is called Kubrick by
on
Kubrick.
Kubrick on Kubrick by
Kubrick by
Kubrick. Yeah.
Kubrick. And that's precisely what they mention in that. And like he also did Clockwork Orange, and then how all that there was so much like ¿cómo se llama? They didn't want to promote that movie. There was so much conflict
It was
because
so violent.
yes, because of the violence. But then they actually interview him. Like they put on this guy who actually interviewed him, and he talks about each and every single individual film, and he explains why he did it and like the breakdown. And then I was like, holy fuck balls, like, yes, oh my god, like he does really think about all the subtext and everything. And I was just like,
Society. It's all like, it is truly all about, society. He's making comments on things,
well,
on
also
the state of
because
society.
yes, and the era he grew up in is very violent. There's wars, and not that we haven't been in a war, like we've always been in wars,
Well, there's a
but
World War II was the big one, and then
yeah. And so
he would have
that
been
was
through
very
Vietnam.
impressionable on him, and he wanted to like bring these issues forward in his films, even if it's in very subtle, but he's bringing them forward.
I suppose, yeah, they did talk about a Holocaust movie that he was never wanting to make. He was gonna make one, but then he never made it. So, and some of those things and some of those elements he talk about in Room 237, where he touches on, like, somebody breaks down like the number 42, for World War II, when he started the Holocaust and started, um, killing the Jews. And they make reference to that with the number 42, and then some people break it down and how things match, and you guys will have to watch it. I really can't. I'm not going to do it justice, but it was
Yeah, I
like, I
won't
was
either,
taken back. I was like,
dude.
holy moly,
Well,
all these
so
all the symbolism.
this was the how I watched it in order. So it was The Shining, Room 237, and then it was such a great thing to follow it up with Kubrick by Kubrick. It really like sealed everything that they mentioned in Room 237, because I was just like, is this real? Is this what happens, et cetera, et cetera. And then watching then that final piece, Kubrick by Kubrick, and then where he himself is being interviewed and he speaks for himself, not just other people making opinions of what he might have been thinking. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't like the hearsay stuff, like, but I'll take it with a grain of salt. Just like, okay, well, and that's your interpretation of what they said, but it may not be what they mean, because I do that with you all the time. Like, you say things and then I'm just like, what? And then I see it like this, and then you're like, no, 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 I meant it like this. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Just like my horse.
Yeah, just like your
What does the horse
fucking
mean?
horse emoji. Like, bro,
Oh, I start.
that's why I'm gonna start just sending you random shit, and then you figure out what the fuck I mean with that. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
I don't mean to send you random stuff, because truthfully, like, when I and now this is the problem I have just in general throughout my whole life. I have a conversation, or I have a mental thought of what I want to say to somebody. And much like writing, because I can't really write. If I write, I'll write, and then I'll leave complete thoughts out of my writing, even though I thought of them.
Oh
And
my
then I go
God.
back and I'm
I'm
like, my
exactly
whole
the opposite. That's why
there's a
I
whole
write everything because I
there's
can
a whole
express myself
like
better.
yeah, there's a whole expression I left out, and I'm like, oh my stars, like I left that out. So a lot of times when I do that, I really don't mean to do that. I'm just kind of broken that way, where like I'll send a text message and then in my head I'm like, they'll get the subtext, they'll understand it, and it just never comes out. But then Lala started saying, you know what, just leave a message. It's probably easier, and you're like, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because we communicate on WhatsApp. I'm like, just record everything you want to say because one sentence is not going to do justice for that whole paragraph you were thinking in your head.
Certainly. And so that solves that. But going back to Kubrick, yeah, there's a lot of subtext. Even, dare I say, they were talking about, that, there's a conspiracy that the moon landing never happened. And they're,
Oh my
they make a
God,
case
yes.
for the moon landing, how Kubrick was hired to film the moon landing, how it was him and his, whoever. And that is why they call it room 237. And then there's a lot
And
of
then that
instances
Apollo
of
11
Apollo
sweater
11.
that Danny is wearing in The
Yes.
Shining, the little boy. And so I was, and then okay. And this is why I was very like, dude, I would always, because I've seen this movie, I don't know, maybe 100 times because that's how much I love it. And I love rewatching it over and over. Just to me, it feels like, whoa, and every time I would see that Apollo 11, but, I didn't grow up in the US. And so I don't really, and I was a kid and like, there, like it was irrelevant, but I'm like, why is this so prominent, this Apollo 11 on this sweater? And I always had that in the back of my mind, always, but I just kind of disregarded it, because I was like, well, I don't know anything about that. And I never read up about it. So I was just like, okay. But after watching those, you know, other movies, I was just like, holy fuck balls. Okay, so then I was kind of, I could see the visual cues of they're trying to send some message, but because I was not educated enough about that particular subject, I didn't get the subtext. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy fuck, like that's what that means. And then when they explain it and then when he talks about it in Kubrick by Kubrick, I was like, what the fuck? Holy fuck balls. I was so just blown away that now I'm gonna do a fucking deep dive into that and research it and just like try to
I was
find out
almost like
about
we
it.
should just watch the movie again and see if there's anything else that pops out for us.
Dude, I
Like,
was watching it like right before we did this call. I was watching it again. I was just like, and now I'm looking at everything, like the
I
entire
mean, I'm
screen,
still
the
frightened
background,
by the
the
whole,
books that are in the
yeah,
background, trying to
right?
read the
Everything. I'm looking at
titles.
everything.
Yes. I was like, what the fuck? Like it really made it even much more exciting for me to watch the movie because I love puzzles and I love figuring shit out
Yes.
and like,
If you like escape rooms, you're gonna
yes,
like The
yes. Oh my
Shining.
God, yes. Oh my God, yes. I love them. Okay, so I'm left-handed, and if y'all know, all left-handed people have like the worst writing. And okay, I wrote these notes. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, it looks like chicken scratch. Okay, so I'm gonna try to read this.
Many types of something, 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 something.
Many types of something material are really oh my God, I can't read my own writing. I'm so sorry. But I thought it was so amazing what he said. It was like just like a perfect fucking quote of how he makes his movies, you know?
Mm.
Um,
Was in Kubrick by Kubrick,
yeah, Kubrick by Kubrick.
which is
And it's
probably the only time
actually
they
on
actually have an interview.
it's on minute 44:13. I wrote it down because I was like, just in case. But Many types of something material
Many types of genre material
are
are really
really
ways
ways about
of
thinking about
thinking
death.
about death.
That in a way, on a
That in a way, it is on a psychological level,
psychological.
possibly a way of exploring attitudes towards death.
That quote I thought was just like so genius. Like this is how what he thinks about and then how he envisions it to put it in the movie. You know how you guys and like Heather and oh my God, I forgot his name.
Alessandro.
Alessandro, yes. We're talking about how they see everything in pictures and visual and stuff. Like this is how like this particular quote is exactly how he envisions it in his head and then how he uh prosecutes it, I guess, or however you know, just
Processes it, yeah, and puts it. Yeah, well, everybody's got a method,
of thinking
so
and
to
then
speak.
how you execute it. That's what I meant to say, execute. But yeah, anyway, I just was so blown away because of that particular quote. And I was like, holy fuck, like, dude, it just kind of inserted me into his train of thought, you know. And like I said, a lot of the times the reason why we have conflict is because just of miscommunication. You and I can hear the same thing, watch the same thing, and then process it in two different ways, you know,
Absolutely.
because of the way we think, because of our background, because of our experiences, because of all this other stuff, you know. Not two people, and how you said, like, you give a film to
100
a
editor.
hundred
Yeah, you get
editors
a
and you get a
the same
hundred different
movie.
cuts. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. And so I was just like, holy fuck. But it just felt like this particular quote injected me right into his train of thought. And I was like
At
the
44 minutes.
skies part, the sun
The sun comes
shines,
down.
the chorus comes, oh.
Oh, angels
You
are
know,
coming down. You know,
yeah. Sorry.
you know what? There was another quote that I thought was pretty fantastic, which was probably is kind of, I was taken back by it. He said something like, "Better to reign in hell than to be a servant in heaven." And I thought for a second, like, ooh, that is spicy as fuck, man. I was
Yes,
just
that's
like,
me.
I was just like,
My
wow.
best friend Armando, if you guys have seen the Costa Rica episode, his nickname for me was Satanas. And no, not the gang Satanas, but just Satanas.
That in English, that's Satan.
Oh yeah, that means Satan. And so he used to be like, Satanas. And then I was just like, yes, you called. Sell your soul for 3 wishes. Oh no, that's a genie, but whatever.
Well, I guess you know, a demon or Satan would take your soul for 3 wishes. Why not?
Sorry, I got real
Wow,
dim.
Lala, you're looking good now. What happened? Something just
I
went.
turned on the light. It's because I was using the natural light from the outside, and then the sun
Damn, this
set,
sun
and
goes down.
then I was like, oh, I look really dark. I mean, darker than I normally am. But anyway, go ahead. So they played Tetris at your house.
They played Tetris at my house and moved some boxes around, and I moved some stuff. But ultimately, I realized that, just like this is part of my own depression. We'll talk about it another time, but we'll just touch about it lightly. That me like keeping stuff around and not committing to move on or getting rid of stuff is me holding on to things. And I need to do that right now. And then part of that is, there's a whole era. There's like a whole chapter in my life is moving on. It's like, you know, it's just like things I need to do. And now I'm not going to do that. So uh, I said that I would, and I'm going to make a big effort to actually this week kind of like cleanse myself from boxes of things that I don't need. I have things that are of worth, but maybe I should put them away or get rid of it altogether. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to save anything anymore. So I'm going to make an effort this week. And I know it's going to be hard to like
Well,
get rid of stuff.
it is just really okay. For example, I mean, because I mean, I've made it pretty clear that I'm on antidepressants and, you know, for also medication for my anxiety disorder and stuff. And I also have panic attacks and stuff. So yay, fun times. But it doesn't manifest like that with me. It's just more like, for example, I literally just have a board that my son made for a science project for his third grade, and I still have it. And like
Well, that's
stuff like
different.
that, I cannot get rid of. And no, but that's what I wanted to say to you. Like, don't get rid of things that are
No,
like
I'm talking
very
about I'm
emotionally.
staring at a like a motherboard that's perfectly fine, but it's like 4 years old. Like I'm not going to ever use it. I should either give it away to someone
Mm.
that can use it or get it out of there completely. It should not be there for like 3 years. It should not sit in one place for 3 years for me to stare at it. I should not like tools and things that I have there. I'm like, I gotta just get stuff out of my living room. Like, I feel like since I moved back in this house, to make a long story short, like I didn't live in my house and then I moved back. I have boxes and I think I've been shuffling boxes. I like the idea of having boxes there because it makes me feel like I was still not comfortable in the house, like being 100% completely moved in again, you know, like
Yeah,
coming back.
your house
It
does
never,
have that effect of like it feels like you just moved in. Like my
yes,
house right now looks like that because I did just move in. But you know, as you see this beautiful artwork by Ladina, one of my
there.
good
Oh, that
friends,
looks
who we're gonna be
nice.
interviewing in the future. But she did this painting for me, specifically for me. But I'm starting to like, I'll put something here and then I'm like, and then I'll
You
have
know,
it there for like a week. And then I'm like, no, I think it'll look better over here. And then I move it and then I'm like, yes. So I'm like literally little by little moving things to where it
I'm just
clicks.
realizing
Like that's where
something
you
crazy right
belong.
now. I'm just realizing something that is, it just happens with you and I. You're actually finally got a place to get all your boxes in, to get things out, to get all your stuff in that you want, and then move boxes
That I
out.
want
Like,
to use. Yeah, I
yes,
want to get rid of
yes.
my boxes. I'm like,
No,
I
no,
want
I
to
am
get rid.
saying, no,
And
I'm what
literally,
I'm saying is it's
okay,
like
wait,
it's like a
wait,
similar
wait. And you and
process,
I,
but
so to everybody out there, we had a box throwing away party at my house. I was like, I need you to help me because I had like just tons and tons of like I've had all this stuff stored in storage or friends' houses for like a decade because you know I was living the life of a vagabond. I was by choice. And so, but then I was like, no, I want to have roots. I want to sit down and have a place of my own where I live by myself and it's all my things and it's just my house and it's just me and my plant Ruby here. It's just me and her, just me and my plant. But you know, I reached that point. And so we had a box cutting party. Literally, I was like, bro, I need you to help me cut
I have
down
pictures.
like
Maybe we can put some
fucking
pictures up.
like
Or do I have
50
pictures of you cutting
boxes or
boxes?
something.
I certainly have pictures of you throwing the boxes out. Maybe we can post
Oh
something
my
like that
God.
out.
Then
Oh my God. Insert box
they
picture here
posted
of a
a
lot of
sign that said, do not throw boxes through the chute. Please take them to the first floor because
Wait,
of
after
that.
we did that? Oh my stars.
I was
That
like,
must have been because
oops,
of us. Because
sorry. We tried to cut them up. I thought they all went through, but I guess they got stuck, you know, because I'm on the sixth floor. And so there's like several
six
floors
floors.
down. Yeah, there's six
There's
floor
6 floors it's got to
more to
travel
go
through.
before it hits
Yeah.
the big bin. And so yeah, they put a sign up and I was like, I was like,
Oops.
sorry, that was me.
Oops.
My bad.
Yeah, we
I
caused
didn't
that.
know. But anyway,
So going back
um,
to like
but
boxes, I got to
to
get stuff
me,
out.
yeah, to me, I feel like that was my therapy, was to cut up those boxes and throw away, because I've been living in boxes for fucking a decade, over a decade. I haven't had my own place in over. I've been literally living, wearing the same clothes, even though I have, oh my God, I have so much clothes. Like I have 4 closets and they're all full. And
Oh my stars. I've only
I
ever
don't
seen one.
wear
I know the Lala uniform. I'm like, oh, yeah,
90%
yeah.
of my clothes. I do not wear 90% of my clothes. I wear the
That's another
same
thing.
10%. And so, but no, but it's because my clothes was in storage. So this was the clothes that I can travel in, because, I used to work traveling. And so it's just like, just the most, like, I'm not going to put on a fucking expensive dress and heels, and, like that was all in storage. So now that I have a place, like I literally, like I went to a concert and I got dressed up. I put on heels, even though it's like at the Hollywood Bowl. It's like outdoors, but I was like, no, like I never I never, because I moved so much for 10 years. Literally, my job was to travel. So I didn't have the opportunity to use my things. So now I'm like, no, now I'm going to use them finally, because I have literally 85% of my clothes in there is brand new. I've never used it.
Wow, I'm not
Literally
even gonna
brand new.
lie. Lala, you look at my stuff right now, and it's like you've never opened this. You've never opened this. This is brand new. I have like
Well,
shirts and things that are still like
in my
for me is like still
defense,
folding.
I
Yeah, you
didn't
were
buy any
traveling.
of this stuff. No, I didn't buy
You
it.
know,
I got it for free.
well, good for you. I
Yes.
know that for me right now is a
Thank you,
change.
Caesar, if you're listening to us. Thank you for giving me all that clothes. I appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I need a big change in my life. I need to streamline, take I guess take note of what what I got, what I need, what I don't need, and really streamline. I realize that when I travel, because sometimes when I travel for work, and I've traveled for work over the years, that I usually go with one suitcase with like maybe like one week's worth of clothes, and that's it. And then I always move into like an empty place. But to me, it's like it was always refreshing. It was just like very minimal. I own none of this. I just need a couch. I need just the bare minimum and what I've got. And I think that's what I want. I just want I don't need any. And as you know, like I got a uniform that I've been wearing for years, for the last several years anyway. It's just like this, I have like maybe like 15 of the same short sleeve shirts in different colors and different variations, and then probably like the same pants or short, like since pandemic, since the same shorts, and that's it. Like I don't need anything else. Like if I go and like I'm like surprised. Like now I go out, it's like, oh shit, I got all these things to go out, but I can't even think about what I want to wear anymore. It's like I don't care. Or maybe I should care, but I
Yeah,
don't. It's like
exactly.
I don't really want
And
to think
that's
about that anymore.
why I started to like wear these things. Like even if it's just to whatever. I'm like, why?
Why not?
I used to care a lot about, and not in a conceited way, but just like self-care, just your presence, and like that is part of your like not yours but mine depression, is that I just like stopped caring how I looked, or like, oh, this is not important,
I
but it
I
really
understand that,
is, like, it really is.
but yeah, I guess I've been depressed. I'm still gonna need some help. Just with a
Oh,
lot of things. I got
which
a
I
lot to
wanted
unpack.
to bring
I've
up,
got a lot to
and we've
unpack.
been reading this book
Oh my
called
stars.
Fearless, and like I'm barely like 5 chapters in, But we're going to be talking about it in the future because she deals a lot with just a lot of like her journey in finding out, you know, that she's depressed, that she also has anxiety, she's got panic attacks. And like I just started reading it and it was just like, and then she does it in a way that it's not depressing. She does it in a very comical way that, but it's easy to read, and I've been fucking enjoying it. But we are gonna have an episode
Shout
all
out to
about
Shauna
that.
Baca, the author of that book, Fearless.
Yes. I've seriously, I was on the metro today. I called Rich and then I was like, yeah. So like I was reading the book on the metro and then I fucking missed my stop and I had to like come back because I was like, whoops, this is where I was supposed to get off. But yeah.
Well, we're glad you made it
But
home, Lala. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking here right now.
well, it's not like I don't know how to get home. I just missed my stop because I was so into it. Like she's so entertaining as a writer. I'm fucking just like, wow.
I'm excited to
Just
hear that.
it
I'm
just
really glad
well
about that.
especially because everything she describes how she feels is exactly how, and you'll read it once you get to a certain point because you've seen me have a panic attack at your house one time. And then once you read it, you'll be like, oh shit, yeah, that's exactly like literally like verbatim almost, you
Oh,
know.
I have an idea. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean that's why I bought these books. I'm like, this is something we can both go through. And I don't know, like you read something, and sometimes it's either helpful or not helpful, or it's a good story or not a good story. But to me, she's very funny, and I think you mentioned today when she was like, it was funny, and I was like, yeah, she's a comic. You know, it's just like if she's not
it
an
just
outright
she
comic, she's
the
an
way she
undercover comic.
writes it is very relatable. And
Yeah,
in not in
that's
a
good.
depressing way, or not in a way that would cause me to have an anxiety attack, because literally when I was reading it, I was like, oh, I hope I don't have an anxiety attack just by reading this. Like, oh my god, because I'm on the train and I don't think I can deal with this. Like
That
I
would be
will,
bad. Like
yeah, like I'll start
Metro
vomiting.
stopped in the middle of the underground today.
I brought this up because we are talking about mental health, and that's basically what The Shining is about, is mental health. um
There is a mental health issue
crisis
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 in The Shining, and it starts from like the first in the first 5 minutes. You'll see,
but it's
folks. If you
all
haven't seen The
sorts of
Shining
different,
already, do me a favor.
like
Just take some time out and watch it. I know it's kind of scary, but if you look at it as if you look at it as something else, then it's something else. Just look at it. It's a really interesting movie. Um, it's some in a different time and a different era. So it might offend some people now, which I think it would for definitely sure. But I think
mhm,
it's still a masterpiece. It's just like it it showcases a lot of things, it's just a lot of things that
that
you
are
would
wrong
not
in
have nowadays.
society. Yeah,
Yeah.
that were wrong in society back then,
Yes.
in the 70s, or what was it, like late 70s, early 80s that
Well,
it
it's
was made.
1980. 1980
Okay.
it was
Yeah,
released.
the
So
year
it
that
was
I was
made in the
born.
70s. It was
On
made
the
in the
year
70s
that I was born,
on
so
the year
was
that I
The
was
Shining.
born. Yeah, could you imagine that? All that
Wow.
shit going on at
So
that
we're the
time?
same age, The Shining and I, the movie.
Yes. Have a celebration.
But the book was
Hand out
written in the
axes.
70s. So you have to understand the mentality of the 70s. And then actually, that's kind of why I like watching those old movies, because it kind of gives me a gauge of like how much we've improved from that thinking to now. I know we're not perfect. We're still striving for better, but in
I mean, when was the
comparison,
Me Too age? When was that? That wasn't that long ago, right? The whole Me Too movement,
I was
that wasn't that long. That
traveling at
wasn't that.
that time, so I don't really know.
Yeah, it was within the last 10 years.
I was just gonna say that within the
It's
last
like,
10 years, because that's when I was gone from the country. So that's
yeah.
when I was
So
living
there's this
abroad.
disagreement. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are not right. There's a lot of things that we can comment on with society, but and there's a lot of movies that say such things, and it's just like there's always subtext, and you just don't say those things outright. Obviously, Kubrick would never say that outright or say that this is about this or this is about that because he can't. If he really was contracted to film the moon landing or recreate it for the public, then there's no way that they would ever admit that, right? So if he was going to subliminally say that he did it and put it in his movie, then that's it. He can
It's
never
fucking
admit to it.
brilliant. That's a
Yeah, it's
brilliant
just
way to
like
fucking do
whatever,
it. I just, yeah, and I don't,
under everybody's eyes and noses. Let's just like, oh,
yeah. And
here
so
it is.
I just thought it was just, I never thought that movie making would have this type of depth, because I always think books have more depth than the movie. Whenever I see a movie, I always get disappointed because I'm like, oh, it's just not as good as the book. The book, you have so much depth. But now knowing that there are, that they actually do take to do in the subtext of the picture. So it's like, a picture is 1,000 words or whatever. Like they actually take the time to, put that in there. And it's just like, oh, fuck. So maybe I've underestimated the whole movie industry.
Well, I would say there are a lot of fantastic movies that do offer a lot of, you know, political points of view, societal points of views, and things like that. But they're
No, but I'm
not.
saying when they're based on a book, I always become disappointed because they're not so in depth like the book can be in depth because of time
Yeah.
constrictions. You know
Actually,
what I mean?
Kubrick mentioned that in that document, the Kubrick on Kubrick, where he says the first time you read a book, it's never like the first time. The first time you read that book, you're never going to have that same experience ever again. And it's
Exactly.
true because it's all on your mind. It's just like nobody can that first experience is just
Yeah.
like, oh my stars, that's
And what
it.
I love to do is to compare the imagery in my head to what the movie, the final cut is. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I totally imagined this like this. Or like, oh shit, this person imagined it just like me. And so that's why I kind of like reading books first and then watching the movies after. Because I want to compare, like, how close are we to our imagination? Like, I imagined it totally different, or even a character, like, oh shit, that's spot on, or no, they got it wrong, like, or, but I say they got it wrong, but when you read it, you imagine it a totally different way.
For sure, for sure. Now, if you were to watch The Shining, you know how Lala was sick the other day, and she was saying she had like a sore throat. Well, she sounded like Tony, the Tony, the imaginary friend, Danny's imaginary friend. Yes. Oh my. Oh,
Hurts
I
so
just,
much to speak.
yes,
I was
Mrs.
like, ouch.
Torrance. I was just like, oh my stars. I was like, Lala, this is exactly. I mean, I don't know if we're just kind of sounding like what we're watching and like, we're in our own imaginations and that's what she's projecting, but that's what she sounded like,
I
folks.
was
And then,
projecting Tony.
yeah,
So when
that
I'm
was
sick,
really funny.
apparently I'm Tony.
Yeah, your voice gets, yes. It's so funny. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
wow. So, yeah, no, all in all, I mean, the movie is fantastic. Room 237 was fantastic. And actually listening to probably one of the few and probably maybe the only interview with Kubrick, because it sounded like he was like
Yes.
a recluse. He didn't talk to anybody. They were saying he was
Never.
like the Howard Hughes of filmmaking. He just didn't want to talk to anybody. So that that interview that they got is like maybe like one of the very few interviews
Gold.
that you'll ever
It's
hear.
fucking gold.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. So the reason I wanted to bring it up was because I don't know. I think it opened my mind into a different way of looking at movies, because you're very into them. And I'm just kind of like, I mean, I watch a lot of movies, but I don't really uh,
You know,
watch
the
them.
beautiful thing about movies is that there is always, when you have like mass media, when I say movies are like mass media, okay, you have a potential to entertain and inform. And I believe, when it comes to morals and certain things, there's the thing. If you can do that, you're gold, It's just like one of
Mm.
the things that I got in the movie business for was because I wanted to do like documentaries. In the beginning, I wanted to teach people. I wanted to inform people. But when I got into the business, documentaries didn't, you couldn't make a living doing documentaries. I think you had to be like the producers and, find the money. And starting out, it's just like, whoa, that's just a hard life, even though that's what I set out to want to do. One of the first
Hard
shows,
knock life for
yeah,
us.
one of the first movies that I helped was a documentary, and it was to be a translator, and I helped with the production in um, a documentary called El Mundo Maya for Time Life. And it was just like, oh my, I thought I just won lottery, but, ultimately it's just like those things don't make a lot of money. And I thought maybe I should just change directories, like directions and what I need to do. But now it feels like now for documentaries, it's like a golden age for documentaries, they say, the golden age. I mean, people have always been making documentaries, but with all the streaming services and all the platforms available for media and content, it makes documentaries more accessible and more readily available and more palatable for people to accept because we need content. And hey, guess what? Documentaries content. And you know what? Let's put it
Dude,
out there. If you want to listen and
dude,
and accept it, great. If not, then great, but it's there.
I
So
just
that's what's
watched a
cool.
movie today at work. Because yes, I can data entry
Well, I'm
and
gonna have
watch
to
the movie
delete.
at the
We
same
have to
time.
delete this. I'm gonna have to
No,
like bleep this
they're
out.
not, they don't listen to my shit. Anyway, yeah, so I was watching this movie called Foster, and it's on HBO. And there was a comment there that I was just kind of like, like, oh, well, you as the foster kid, I mean, they're interviewing a woman who's a social worker, and she used to be in foster care. And so she says this. She's like, well, they said, well, you don't know what the social workers go through. And then I was like, but if you're a social worker that has never been through foster care, then you don't know what the fuck we're going through, So
Right.
fuck off. But I didn't take it to that level of thinking because she herself was in foster care and is now trying to make a change from the inside. But also, it kind of gave me that rage. But she also spoke about that. She's like, dude, I used to fucking hate social workers. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it. But then she said, then I you look at it from this other perspective, and she's like, and because I have this other background knowledge about the insides of what it feels like, I have she had more depth,
Credibility
I guess.
and
Well,
depth.
also credibility with the children that are under her care. But also she says it does take a toll on you. She's like, so I never thought about it from their perspectives, but I'm like, yeah, but we're the ones that have to live through the abuse, not them. I mean, and yes, there is PTSD. We're having to read all this fucking abuse because, once again,
Much
we
like
talked
reading
about
all
this in
those, like, from the last show where you talked about
reports.
reading the
Yes,
reports and reading
exactly.
how can people be such monsters? Like Is this real?
Exactly.
Really real?
So then I kind of was like, ugh, but my body kind of fought it, but I was just like, okay, I have to be understanding because yeah, you do get traumatized just by reading reports. Like, so I don't know. I thought it was very well put together in the interview. Like uh 3 or 4 different families dealing with 4 different things regarding the system. And so I was just like, shit. But, I'm so glad that it's out because, I'm a product of that same system and I had to live through it. And I didn't live through as bad as other people, but living in that group home I lived in, I heard stories of the girls who lived there, and they told me stories about different foster homes they lived at and the foster parents and the different group homes and all this shit and abuse and like, fuck, like you are taken away from your abusive parents just to be abused even more in foster care, and it's just like, oh, but they were talking about that the problem it's a societal problem. Mostly it's poverty because that's the majority of the kids that go to foster care is they're poor. Rich people kids don't go to foster care. They got family or money, where they can put them in facilities or whatever. It's all poor kids, and mostly of, Black or Latinos, like that's basically what is the majority, and so it's just like,
Wow,
fuck.
maybe I should watch this documentary and
Dude, you need to watch it.
I'd probably be tilted. I don't know if I could deal with that because
I mean, it's
you know,
nothing graphic.
no, I know it's nothing
But it
graphic, but
just
I've
talks
had to
about
deal
the
with it in my life.
reality.
I didn't live through foster care, but I'll share a little something in my own personal life. My youngest daughter was in foster care for a year, and me trying to get her out was the hardest thing. And ultimately, she ran away from foster care. We tried to do it right through the. It all stemmed from me not wanting to give her medicate. Me just saying the word no. Like they said, "Do you want to give your daughter like medication for her mental health?" And I said, "Well, let me look into it. Let me send her to a doctor or something and see if that's the right path." And they said no. So I went to court and they said basically you denied, you don't want to help your daughter and blah blah blah. And then it was just like this whole thing with my daughter. But we can get into that. But my experience with foster care was trying to get my daughter out. And you know what happened? She ran away from foster care. She was away for a week, 2 weeks. I didn't know what was happening with my daughter. And she came home. They realized that, I don't know why, but they didn't want that responsibility anymore. And they basically said, take her back. It was the craziest fucking thing. I don't know how or why that happened, but that's what happened. But for a whole year, she was in foster care. And for a whole year, I had to go to like therapy and go to things with her and like just do this whole thing. And I didn't really understand. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm stuck in the system. This is one of those things. I mean, this is, one of the reasons I was divorced originally for, um, because of the situation with my daughter. It was just like one of those things. But yeah, it gets me tilted because my daughter had stories of like, dad, like, they're shooting fucking heroin, they're smoking meth, they got everything in here. Like, what the fuck am I doing in here? I'm like, just don't do any of that. She got in more fights than she ever did in her whole life. She had to defend herself. She got in a lot of
Yeah.
fights. And I was like mortified because not only, you put my daughter in jeopardy, nobody's actually looking after them. The door's wide open. She could leave any time. But I'm like, let's just go through. We're like, let's just go through the process. Let's go through the process. Let's do this right and come back home. And the process didn't work. I think she just couldn't take it. She just ran away. But maybe we'll talk to my daughter about it. I don't know. Maybe it's something that she wants to talk about.
Yeah. TBD for the next episode.
TBD.
But yeah,
But I'll leave it at that.
Watch that
Yeah,
movie,
I'll leave it at
Foster.
that. So Foster
It's
on HBO. Oh my
HBO.
stars.
It's such a good one. And like
I
Because
just
we
got
are
triggered
gonna.
right now, Lala. I don't know.
I
I'm
know.
like, it just made me really fucking anxious. Just even
I
saying those things.
know.
I'm sharing those things with everybody, and maybe that's okay because I got to get it off my chest. Some of those thinking things as a parent, you don't really know because for those 2 weeks, I didn't know what was happening with my daughter. As a parent, when you have your daughter out there in the world and you don't know what's going on, where she is, how they are, every day every day I thought they're going to come and tell me there's going to be an officer going to come tell me that she's gone, she's gone, she's gone, she's gone.
Well,
And
I
it
assumed that
was,
because I had the
it was the
exact
not
opposite.
knowing.
My
It was the not
parents kicked me
knowing.
out of the house and just threw me out into the streets at the age of 12. And I had just gotten here from Mexico. And so culture shock, and I have to live in the streets. And my parent is kicking me out to the curb. So I think I had the opposite of what you had.
I know.
For an entire year, I just had to go live in the
I'm so
streets.
sorry about that. You know what? But I'm
I'm
so
assuming that's
happy.
what loving, caring parents
I'm
looks like, but I don't know what
Lala. You
that
know what?
looks like.
I'm
And
just
that's
gonna say
precisely
this.
what they talk about in this movie, Foster, is that we are like
I'm
you,
grateful for
like,
your presence here on this podcast and with me and
well,
sharing this
no,
with
but it's
everybody.
just what they talk about is like you grow up thinking there's something wrong with you because you're the one kicked to the curb. And how come your parents don't love you and you see everybody else's parents love you? And then you're just like, well, is there something wrong with me? And because they tell you that there is something wrong with you, and then you're put into this foster care system that tells you that there's something wrong with you. And, you're just
Like pick something that you
systematically,
think is like, yeah,
and it's just
they gotta
like,
have a
oh my
reason.
God. It was so sad, but also comforting that I'm not the only one that feels this way. I mean, it's sad that there's other people that feel exactly the same way, but it just felt like, oh my God, okay. And, it's, you kind of go through like a little bit of their journey, like, a very small course of it. But,
Yeah, when it comes to
it's just
foster
like,
care, I mean,
fuck.
it's not always what you think it is. And folks, if you want to share that, Lala's sharing that foster it's on HBO Max or HBO. So check that out. It's not always what you think it is. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for people being in foster care, and we can't always tell every individual story. But let me tell you something that
But
everybody
if you
needs
would like
love.
to share it, you can share it with us on stories
Yeah.
at whathappened.com.
If you
If
want to
you
share your story on foster care, definitely come on
Well, no,
and well,
because I have my opinions, and then we've been trying to get someone to speak about it, but she also had her mother passed away, so she's dealing with that. So I didn't want to
maybe
pressure
we can
her.
have a couple of different opinions.
Yeah, so if you guys have any opinions or whatever, your side of the story from whatever point of view you're coming from, I would love to hear it because just hearing this social worker, and she used to be in foster care. And so it's just like, oh, okay. My body wanted to fight it, but I was just like, no, no, okay. So I don't know. I kind of felt really good about watching it. I didn't feel as triggered I
Well,
thought I was going to be, but it's just like, fuck, I'm just
I know you view
glad
things
that
like
they use this platform to, like you said, now that the documentary is golden age, they are fucking putting this out there, and I'm just really happy that they have, because this is it. I mean, I fucking suffered through it, so I
at least
completely
you're not
understand.
alone, and there's like other voices out there for people to, you're not alone. You're just not alone. You're just not alone. And when you think you're
Yeah, so
alone,
coming
you're really
soon,
not.
another episode of more mental health problems that we have. Yes.
More mental health problems. I mean, we could talk. I got a lot to talk about. I got a lot to unload on you all, but we're gonna save that for another show and maybe
Yes,
with other people because
but
I have questions. I
yeah,
have
I have a lot of
questions.
questions. I
I
have
have a lot of
questions.
questions.
But I would
But
love to
you know
have
what?
your friend who wrote this book that we were talking about, Fearless. If you guys want to read about it before we talk about it, it's Fearless by,
Shauna Baca.
yeah,
But yeah,
that
shout
is a
out to Shauna
topic.
Baca and then I know we veered off the Shining and
No, I don't
Stanley
think we
Kubrick.
did because we were
It's
literally
mental health.
talking
Yeah,
about
this-
mental health. And I mean, this
Yeah.
is like, and we've been wanting to bring up several topics. It's just that,
Yeah.
like, it is crazy trying to schedule people to interview. It's so insane.
Let's read Fearless. We'll plug that.
Yeah,
book. You
so
can find
then
it at
we're reading
Amazon.com.
Fearless now, and we are going to be discussing it.
Yeah, and we can talk about all kinds of other stuff too. I mean,
But
it's
if you
not
guys
just
want to, tell us your stories about any of the topics that we've talked about, you had a funny story or you have some sort of anecdote to whatever. I mean, whatever it is, just please send us your emails at stories
at wahahappened.com.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Please hit that like button and follow.
Like, subscribe, follow.
Yes, please. And then soon we're going to be setting up our Patreon. So you guys can look forward to
Support what we
that.
do.
And we look
Yeah,
forward to your
support.
support. Thank you guys for listening
This
to
is
us.
Rich Mo.
And this is Lala signing out.
Signing out. Bye-bye.
Bye.
To follow us, you can go to whatahappened.com for a link to all of our social media and to read our bios.
If you would like us to read your story,
May it be funny or scary or just some hot cheese mix.
please email us at stories@whatahappened.com.